luxury, in titanium, leather, and champagne. And the roar of its passing would be heard around the world. It was called Concorde, and this is the story of its last flight into history.
And it went overhead, and it was unearthly. I'd never seen anything like it. I'd never heard anything like it.
Twice the speed of sound, 1,350 miles an hour, 23 miles a minute, 5 football pitches a second.
You fly it absolutely as fast as you can, with full power all the time.
It's never loud enough. The sound resonates throughout your entire body.
It's a piece of perfection. It's human engineering at its best. It's the most amazing design of flight transport that we've ever come across. It's just an exciting moment, you know, to be on this aircraft.
This shows us how far the human being has gone.
Honor and privilege today to welcome you to Concorde's last flight ever.
Well, British Airways invited us to be on this historic last flight of the Concorde, and I thought, well, this is the last time we're going to get there in 3 hours, so let's go.
We're going to take you to the edge of space, where the sky gets darker, where you can see the curvature of the Earth, faster than a rifle bullet, 23 miles every minute. We're going to travel so fast, we're moving faster than the Earth rotates. And the world will be watching us.
If the jumbo jet was being taken out of service, it wouldn't mean very much at all. But with Concorde, there's real emotion.
It's a tragedy, but we'll all go down in champagne and enjoy it.
Alpha Golf, 31 left, please 401.
You know why? Well, this is it. This is the last flight, and I have this sunken feeling in my chest that I can't count on this anymore. I'm never going to see it again. And we're going backwards in time, quite honestly. I mean, we have nothing here to replace it. Coming out to the airport's not going to be quite the fun as it used to be. I mean, I can come out here any day of the week and see the same kind of planes every day. But once today's over, once this flight takes off, there's not going to be anything worth getting up at the crack of dawn coming to see.
No one could believe it, you know, when we heard about it. It was like, how can they not continue with Concorde? I mean, it's the future, and yet it's being relegated to the past, which makes no sense to me at all. They talk about, you know, another SST down the road, but they say, no, not in our lifetime, so I don't know. It's tragic. Absolutely tragic.
445 as you approach closer, helicopters.
Several helicopters to the right side of the runway, they'll be well clear.
Sam Cohen cleared the first Concorde that landed. Now, he's about to clear the last.
It's hard to believe it's been a long 37 years. Here it is, the last one.
Concorde was a symbol for unattainable luxury, the ultimate definition of the jet set. Its basic story can be told in a few facts. Beginning in 1976, Concorde flew 2.5 million people at Mach 2. For its 100 passengers, there was only one class of Concorde service, and that was first all the way. The last year of its flight, a round-trip ticket from New York to London could cost $12,000. Only two of the world's airlines flew Concorde, Air France and British Airways. Due to noise restrictions, only two airports in the United States, New York's Kennedy and Washington's Dulles, were allowed to receive Concorde. There were only 14 Concordes, and in July of 2000, when one crashed in Paris, time began to run out. early 2003, the decision was made to take Concorde out of service. It would never fly commercially again after October 24th, 2003.
We always knew that Concorde would retire one day, and we'd come to that time perhaps a little earlier than we anticipated. A number of reasons for that. Firstly, the number of business people who want to travel on Concorde has reduced, as the general economic climate in the world has turned down, as we've had SARS, the Iraq War, in the UK, foot and mouth disease. A number of things have led to big companies deciding to downsize their travel budgets, to reduce the number of options available to their premium clients. At the same time, the manufacturers, Airbus, came along to us and said that in addition to the budgeted maintenance requirement, we were going to need to spend an additional $60 million over the next 2 years. Some of that was Concorde specific, but most of it was related to changes that are made to all aircraft. New flight deck doors, new avionics, new systems, new security measures. So we were faced with a double hit. And so that got us to the position where we decided that the time had come that Concorde should retire.
To be at the birth of technology is a wonderful thing, and I think in my whole life, all I've seen is things getting better, cars getting better, and televisions and radio and transport. We're at the death of something, at least the ending of the type of technology. I've never had this experience before. I've never had the experience of seeing something good, something that good, end.
Who knows what the future may bring, but at this point in time, there is nothing on the cards to replace it. So what we're doing is we're stopping the concept of people being able to cross the Atlantic in 3.5 hours, do a day's business, and be back in time for dinner at night.
It's a bad decision. I don't care if it loses money. This is something which Britain should be proud of. It's something the world should be proud of. And this is a step backwards in history, not a step forward.
It made possible things that would be normally considered impossible. You could leave London at 9 o'clock in the morning and go and have a meeting in New York, and then literally, as I often did, come back that night. So this service is going to be hugely missed by business people. So I think it's very sad.
But above all, it's losing the opportunity to be in two places at once. With Concorde, as long as it was going, you could be in London at 10 o'clock in the morning and in New York at 10 o'clock in the morning.
I think the human race has always strived to do things better and greater and quicker. And the designers that thought of Concorde and brought it to fruition were really very, very clever people. It's a tribute to them that the aircraft has worked without modification so well for so long. It really is a clever piece of engineering to be able to carry people so quickly across the Atlantic.
This is a brilliant machine. This was flying before the advent of the microchip era. They didn't even have pocket calculators when they were designing this aeroplane. It was designed using a slide rule. So it hasn't got a high degree of automation. What computers it has got are analog, not digital.
The men and women who put together the idea of an airplane that would go 1,400 miles an hour and be a plane for human beings are the same people who could have written poetry. They simply wrote poetry with metal and their great minds and with mathematics.
What compelled such devotion from so many people? Was it the promise of luxury redefined through speed?
Each girl has a complete wardrobe in pale blue and in navy blue.
Was Concorde a symbol of celebrity that reflected light back on our more ordinary world? Or was Concorde an experience that simply cannot be defined?
I will never forget it because it was mid-January, it was freezing cold, 7 o'clock in the morning. Drove into work, 4 hours later I had a rum punch in my hand and I was on the beach in Barbados. Amazing.
Well, I remember sitting on board the aircraft with a small window, and the first thing that came to me was my meal tray with a pot of caviar, a glass of champagne, and I thought, this is living.
It was just very exciting from the time you checked into the lounge until you stepped off at the other end, wherever that other end happened to be.
When you ask the regular Concorde passengers, they'll tell you it doesn't really matter how much comfort and style you put in the aircraft and what in-flight entertainment you have. The one thing you can't give them back is time.
What was it like to fly Concorde? In the months before this last flight, British Airways allowed our cameras to document the Concorde's last days of operation. It was both a period of mourning and a celebration.
You're actually sitting there, unleashing the power of 4 Rolls-Royce engines with afterburner. Maximum thrust. It's a sensation I'll never forget.
This is the story of Concorde, as it was, and as it will never be again.
Ghosts, witches, Bigfoot, the Bermuda Triangle.
The Eagle has landed. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
The Concorde first flew the same summer that man first walked on the moon. Ironically, like Concorde, the technology and optimism that brought us so far seems now beyond us.
The technology to put man on the moon and the technology to fly safely with passengers at twice the speed of sound are similar. The big difference, of course, is that we stopped putting man on the moon in the 70s. We've carried on flying our passengers supersonically right through to the 21st century. The other big difference is, if you want to be a spaceman, you have to wear a spacesuit. Our passengers are sitting there on the edge of space wearing lounge suits.
There was a time when the need for speed was a cultural imperative.
It was just after the Second World War that people started thinking in terms of travelling faster than the speed of sound. Chuck Yeager did it in the 40s, and in the 50s, the British and the French were independently thinking of a supersonic airliner. They came together in 1962 to form a joint venture to produce what became Concorde.
The world was at Concorde's command. This sensation of power was communicated to its passengers.
I flew from Washington to London, and when we got there, I said, my God, this is over so quickly. When time shrinks in travel, this transfer is something akin to being an astronaut. And the Concorde is the nearest thing that anyone will have to being in a rocket, because you're leaving, the thing takes off, and literally 3 hours or less than 3 hours later, you're at your destination. You've crossed the Atlantic, you're in another culture, another time zone. I do the New York Times crossword puzzle. We got to London before I finished it. That hasn't happened to me on a flight before.
Like many of its elite passengers, Concorde was all about beauty and power. Its 4 Rolls-Royce engines were huge, noisy, and hungry for fuel.
Each engine, when it's at full reheat, is developing somewhere in the region of about 38,000 pounds of thrust. That equates to roughly the power required to power about 10,000 Leyland mini cars. So you can imagine that thrust is what gets the aircraft airborne.
These huge engines were so noisy that Concorde was prevented from landing in almost every single U.S. airport. This decision was ultimately to be one of the reasons that Concorde was to turn into a beautiful but impractical luxury item. But that beauty, while it lasted, was blinding.
One of the other unique features of the aircraft is that the wing doesn't develop a natural lift like a normal aerofoil shape would, so the aircraft actually has to rotate to get airborne. It also needs to be traveling at a considerably higher speed than you would on a normal subsonic. About 250 knots is your normal takeoff speed, so an incredibly fast aircraft on the ground.
Concorde flew at 60,000 feet on the edge of space. Like other spacecraft, the faster it flew, the hotter its skin got.
Concorde, when it's in supersonic flight, it's incredibly hot. The aircraft actually stretches some 8 inches in flight when it's in supersonic cruise.
As a result, the airframe was coated with a special paint that kept the aircraft in one piece.
At one point, I feel heat. I'm wondering where the heat's coming from, and I have the air conditioning coming on from above. And that's when I realize the heat's coming from the windows. You touch the windows, and the windows are hot.
Concorde's design was a synthesis of form and function. It was often referred to as the swan of the skies. But unlike the swans of children's books, it could become an ugly duckling at the pilot's command.
When Concorde comes into land, it comes in at a very steep angle of attack. The pilot obviously needs to see the runway when he comes in for landing. That's the function of the droop nose and the visor that you see at the front of the aircraft. No other aircraft has this feature, and its pure function is to allow the crew to see the runway on approach landing and on takeoff. When the aircraft starts approaching the supersonic speed, the nose will lift up, the visor will come up and close the windows off, and that's to give the aircraft the smooth lines that it needs to be able to travel at speeds in excess of Mach 1.
All of this technology needed close attention. Adding to Concorde's high cost of operation was a flight engineer, a third crew member. He didn't fly the plane, he just made sure it could fly.
On the ground before the flight, my first duty is to walk around the aircraft and make sure that all the procedures have been correctly carried out to prepare the aircraft for flight. All the panels are closed, all the engines are secure, and all the components are fit for the next flight.
Once airborne, the flight engineer's job really began.
On the Concorde, the flight engineer has got a very unusual job in that, amongst all his normal flight engineer's duties, he controls the centre of gravity of the aircraft, which is critical to the aircraft's flight envelope. The aircraft cannot fly without the flight engineer moving the fuel around the aircraft.
The Concorde's flight attendants were also a hand-selected elite.
Concorde fleet is like an airline within an airline. We've all been selected, we've all had to go through quite a rigorous interview process.
It took years working through the ranks before one was selected to fly on Concorde. It required lifelong dedication and a passion for the plane.
When I was a little girl, I used to watch the aircraft fly overhead, and I always dreamed someday I'd be on board it, and I never really thought that my dream would come to fruition until I came to work for British Airways, and then that's all I wanted to do. I think I'll miss the people that I see on a regular basis, because it is almost like a flying club for our regular passengers. We get to see them an awful lot of the time, and we get to know them by their names and recognise them, and the same for them for us. And it'll be strange not seeing them once a week.
Concorde pilots were the ultimate elite, and they knew it. There have been fewer British Airways Concorde pilots than there have been U.S. astronauts.
Whenever there's a vacancy on the Concorde for a pilot, we get far more applicants in there are positions, and so seniority comes into play. And we put them through a training course for 6 months compared to just 2 to 3 months for a conventional airplane. And that's because the aircraft is more complex, because the aircraft flies at normal heights and at twice the height of conventional airplanes, normal speeds and at twice the speed of sound. It's rather like 4 aircraft rolled into one. There are almost 4 times as many systems.
Well, the airplane is a piece of magic. I mean, it's a magical piece of engineering. It's something that it's a real one-off. As I say, it's extremely special in all sorts of ways. And the transition to supersonic flight is a non-event. You don't even notice it's happening. One minute you're flying along subsonic, the next minute we're at Mach 2 at 60,000 feet. And you're sitting there sipping your champagne and looking out at the curvature of the Earth and seeing the sky go darker. And we're up where the air is so rarefied, it's down to 1 pound to the square inch. We're on the edge of space. Going higher, you're an astronaut.
The thing that attracts all pilots to Concorde is its beauty, its simplicity, and yet it's such a fantastically clever technological airplane. There are psychologists who tell us that it appeals to both sides of the brain. The technical side appeals to one half of the brain and the artistic side to the other. And it's also a fabulous airplane to fly. It's rather like a racehorse rather than a riding school hack, or a sports car rather than a truck.
I'm very privileged to be able to fly this airplane. It's taken 27 years of experience to get in a position where I could fly the airplane, and I feel very honoured and privileged that I've been able to do it.
Well, I go on to 747s, a jumbo jet, very briefly. I retire next year anyway. But they won't pay me off early. They're insisting that I convert to jumbos, but it won't be the same. Too slow. Take too long.
Concorde pilots can fly again, but the position of the flight engineer is now redundant.
I've got several things I would like to do, and I will be happy doing, but none of them will match the Concorde experience, unfortunately.
Clearly, Concorde is the flagship of British Airways and offers the best that we do and the best product that we have in terms of speed. But our other products offer different things. First class is a flatbed that is fantastic, the best bed flying. And we're now introducing in our business class Club World flatbeds across the entire network. We want to keep the spirit of Concorde going. We want to keep the spirit of superb elegance, really good service. Whenever you travel with British Airways, you get the experience that many of our customers have had on our flagship while she's been flying.
Good morning, welcome.
The Concorde experience was a symphony of luxury. Like every great symphony, every detail was carefully calculated for its intended audience. Few of the elite passengers had any idea of just how much went into their short flights. We are about to find out.
Ghosts, witches, Bigfoot.
The Concorde experience was like no other. It began the second you checked in.
People on Concorde tended not to travel with a lot of baggage because a lot of people would be day trippers in a sense. They'd be going from London to New York, say, for some meetings and be back home in London that night. So there was never a long queue, and you felt just a member of a very exclusive club, and in fact, you were.
Hello. Hello.
They take your coat, they take your belongings, put it to the side, and you just come into a very large swank kind of a lounge with leather seating, sofa lounge chairs and whatnot. There's a big bar to the right with all top shelf liquor.
Just before takeoff, we offer a canapé service before the passengers board the aircraft with champagne, which is sort of the start of the Concorde experience. We try and offer a varied range from sandwiches to salads and to a finished meal.
On each flight, we'll carry 21 bottles of champagne, 17 bottles of white wine and 17 bottles of red. And also, we get through about 4 bottles of port on every sector as well. For some reason or other, our Concorde passengers have always been partial to our ports.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Concorde. Flight 2 today will be under the command of Captain Bill.
One of the beauties of Concorde is its elegance, its class, its style, and its apparent simplicity. To our customers, it's minimalist to an extent. We offer the best cuisine, the best wines, the best service in the air. Rather like the elegant Swan, looks beautiful up on the top, there's an awful lot of paddling goes on underneath. And to prepare Concorde each day for flight is a major operation. My colleagues in engineering will be starting to prepare the aircraft several hours before departure. The flight crew report 1 hour and 40 minutes before the flight.
Oh, splendid. Yeah, we've got trouble with the runway, sorry.
Yeah. Runway, all the 1-3s and 3-1s are closed.
Well, 2-2 then. So I'm just going to put this in for 2-2 right. Okay. Yeah. 182 tons. Sorry.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Concorde Supersonic Flight number 2 is now ready for boarding at gate number 6. At this time, I'd like to welcome on board passengers seated in rows 11 through 26.
Your flight time is expected to be 3 hours and 17 minutes, and the weather for your arrival is
Forecasted to be partly cloudy, with temperatures in the mid-70s. At this time, we'd like to thank you for flying with us today and for choosing British Airways.
Good morning to you. I'd like to take you to the
You know, it was a designer plane, so there was lots of room, lots of pillows, lots of blankets. Although Concorde being Concorde, they probably would weave one for you on request.
And the seats are amazing because it's not like any first class or a coach seat where you can put the seat back. It's the entire seat jockey's back on one pivot point. It's like it's a bucket seat, like on a '69 Mustang, let's say.
And it sort of sat back on its tail and just took off. And it was almost like being on a Disneyland ride. You know, it sort of pinned into its seat, the fantastic extensive acceleration.
With acceleration, and you're not falling back in the seat, you're actually being rocked upwards.
You're actually sitting there, unleashing the power of 4 Rolls-Royce engines with afterburner. Maximum thrust. It's a sensation I'll never forget.
When the big things in the back kicked in and you went sonic, there was an ever-changing sign in the cabin which told you how fast you were going, at what altitude, and Mach 1, Mach 2, whatever. The seat of my pants knew I was going faster than I'd ever gone.
Once airborne, the party began. Concorde was more than a form of transportation. It was a rarefied social experience.
Having taken off, we will then sort of break up in the bars, get everything ready, and serve the drinks that the passengers have ordered from us. Some of these people travel on it more than I do. And to be able to welcome on board by their names without even seeing their boarding cards, they recognize you, they sit down, and I don't have to ask them what they want to drink. I don't have to ask them what they want to eat. If they're going to New York, then a lot of them will just want a bottle of water and maybe a light snack, sandwiches, and I'll just say the usual to them, and they'll say yes. They're going home, possibly for the weekend, and they might like a glass of red wine or white wine and the full meal. So that really does stick in my mind. It's like a very exclusive club with our regular customers, and I will miss that.
Flying the Concorde is not only convenient, it's a kind of social circumstance which makes for a club group. So those who fly the Concorde are Concorders, and somehow you smile a little more at people on the plane and get smiled at more frequently.
I remember once flying from London to New York, and a member of the president's cabinet was on board, and had his tie loosened, his shoes off, and I remember the captain came back and said, "Sir, the president of the United States is calling." And this gentleman got up, straightened his tie, put his shoes on, as though the president of the United States could see him in a relaxed mode, and went forward like a soldier to answer the call. That always tickled me.
Although a rarefied club, anyone could be admitted. All you needed was a $12,000 round-trip ticket.
Now we're seeing many, many more individuals who are saying, right, we know Concorde's retiring, we want that experience of a lifetime. We want to fly on this fantastic aircraft, we'll save up our money, and we'll take the trip we always promised ourselves.
What we're feeling now is sheer exhilaration. We wanted to see the curvature of the Earth and experience the Concorde while it's still on service, and spend the first time on a trip like this in supersonic with my new wife.
Everybody's just they're just so happy to be on the aircraft, and it's just a wonderful atmosphere every time I've flown on her. You know, apart from the rich and the famous, it's everybody's dream to fly on this aircraft.
The best part of all this luxury was that many of the frequent business flyers could justify the expense. Their time saved was money earned.
Well, Concorde primarily is a business person's tool. It's always been designed to carry a business person between London or Paris and the East Coast of the United States. Those people whose time is money, their time is so valuable, they pay a premium price in order to travel and to make the trip in a short period of time to accomplish whatever they had to do.
The atmosphere on Concorde today I describe as somewhat ho-hum. You get on the plane, many times I run into people I know in business, many times I run into people I know just from flying the Concorde. You get to know the crew, you get to know the ground staff on a first-name basis on both ends. I board a flight at midnight in Bangkok. I travel the 12 or 13 hours back to London. I arrive in London at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning. I get off the plane, I take a hot shower, I put on clean clothes, I eat breakfast, I get on the Concorde, and I'm back in my office in New York City by 10 in the morning. So I've flown 24 hours, and I've not missed any working time.
Well, for about 10 years in my 30s, I commuted on Concorde virtually every week. And I would never have been able to have the good luck I had in America, trying to plant a British flag in Madison Avenue if it hadn't been for Concorde. That's what made the whole thing possible for me.
Some people are going to be a millionaire. They want to do that. Some people want to be a big doctor in Manhattan with a big office. I had a very, very small goal for myself. I wanted to experience the flight, and I didn't want to live my life without finally being the person to look out the window just for once.
There was another way to enjoy Concorde, and that club would often meet on a windswept beach a mile away from Kennedy Airport.
31 left. Sorry, 31 left. 31 left. Somebody owes me a pound or two.
Ghosts, witches.
Although Concorde symbolized the rich and famous, there was another side to the experience.
They're taking off on 4. They'll either send it out on 31 left or on 22. I mean, I don't think they're going to...
Call it the Concorde cult. People on both sides of the Atlantic who obsessively documented every takeoff and landing. In some cases, it was a family affair.
I feel like I'm losing a part of my history because it's what I grew up with. If you were someone that grew up with a baseball field in your house that got torn up, the same kind of emotions run through you. You're losing something that you'll no longer see. My father would spend his weekends and he would take us out to the airport. And I'm a little guy, maybe 3 or 4 years old, and here I am every Saturday and Sunday watching Concorde take off and land with him. I was very, very young. And since then, whenever I get a chance, if I have a day off and whatnot, I still try and get over there and catch it flying still.
You know, I miss like 707s. I miss caught the end of 727s. I mean, I don't want to go another couple of years and say, oh, I miss the Concorde. You know, I want to get as much video of it as I can. I want to see it as much. I want to enjoy it as much.
Okay, 6008, taxi left November West Alpha.
Luckily today the sun is being hidden a little bit. We have to factor that into our strategy as well. The sun's glaring, you know, it's the middle of the summer, 9 o'clock departure. All you're gonna get is really glare, but you still get the excitement coming at you.
I don't care if you like planes or not. You know, some people may think it's weird, but when it comes to the Concorde, I don't see how you couldn't like it and want to get up early for that. Yeah, no, it's cultish. It's you know, you learn so much. You go home and start reading stuff. You know, you got to make sure you keep your information up to date. You know, you're constantly reading aviation news stuff to see what's going on. Everyone's good friends.
Well, I see her go off every chance I get. Well, I went out and bought a scanner, and you can listen to different frequencies, and you just get to say, this is departure, this is arrivals, that type of thing. And you get to monitor the frequencies, you monitor the ground, you monitor departure, you know, the tower, things like that.
Paper 2 Heavy, 105012, runway 31 left, start to take us.
All right, guys, you got clearance. Quite nicely.
I don't know, favoring the cat. I'm looking for mist.
Did you get the vapor trails up there?
Yeah. It'll be light, but yeah.
You came up early, right? Okay.
Yeah, that went well.
I was filming it, and I just had to put the camera down and just watch it. You know, just the noise and just seeing this glare coming off it. It's just so beautiful. You know what I mean? It doesn't get much better.
Just totally different, isn't it? You know, it's an airplane that is just totally different from all the rest. That's what makes it different. You can stand here and see 747s take off, and even though they're different colour schemes, they all pretty much look the same. But Concorde's the one that is just totally different from everything else, and that's why
You're just in awe of it. You know, it's just absolutely, you know, in awe. And when you're underneath it, and you get the full vibration and the noise factor, and you watch it go right overhead. So yeah, you know, I love a 747, okay, but it doesn't compare to what that Concorde does to you, you know, it just knocks you off your feet.
After a lifetime of looking up, Mario Craig finally got his chance to get inside the Concorde experience when a relative who worked for British Airways was able to get him a discounted ticket.
And I didn't think it was going to happen until I actually touched the plane, and that's when I knew it was going to happen. And I walked up to the white covering, and I realized this is it. I touched the skin on the plane, and I'm like, well, this is really it. I'm a small guy, I'm only 5'8", and I ducked into the plane, and I was like, wow, this is really small. I go down the alley to my seat was 11A, and as I go to my seat, I literally pinch the seats. I get chills about it right now, because I do get teary-eyed still. I can't believe I've done it. To me, I still feel like it was a dream.
And now, that dream is over. For many, a photo by the Mach meter will be the only proof that they somehow managed to travel twice the speed of sound.
I always joke to my friends now, they say to me, what are you going to do when Concorde finishes? And I said, well, I'm going to have to become a mere mortal again now. Travel at below 12 miles high in the sky and less than the speed of sound and less than a rifle bullet.
But Concorde was not allowed to fly gently into the night. Everyone agreed that its era needed to be closed out in style.
When we announced the retirement of Concorde, one of the things we at British Airways said was we intend to make this a celebration. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us to celebrate the British Airways flagship, Concorde.
We're having the British Airways guest list, and we're asking all the passengers who are flying on today to just give us a few words. This will be taken on board, and it'll be left in London.
It's pretty early. It looks like we can get some nice light this morning. It looks good where the water's going, good where the wind's going. This is good light. It's beautiful.
It's really nice.
We'll catch her.
Nice silhouette shots.
Yeah, once you go over the bridge, there's going to be a light there. You can't make a legal left, so you got to make a right and then make a left across Crossway Boulevard.
The time has come, ladies and gentlemen. British Airways invites all those passengers that are booked on the BA 002 to board Concorde for the very last time.
Are you ready for the new season of the World Poker?
I've done a lot of Concorde flights in my time, over 200, and I also have a few Guinness World Records using Concorde, including fastest around the world, and in the early days I tried to promote this wonderful flying machine. And today it's a disgrace that we are having this so-called party. To me, it should be a wake, basically.
Giant 3 heavy takes the Alpha Golf Zulu to 3-1 left.
First Concorde was back in October of '77. He landed on runway 4 left. It was a pretty big news event at the time. A lot of media, a lot of helicopters in the area, a lot of people out there on the field, and it was a pretty exciting time.
Thank you very much. Really good cause for the rifle bullet then.
Speedbird 2, Canada Tower, continue up, call short Juliet, and we'll get you on your way for your requested departure time.
I think Tower just gave her clearance. Guys, you're ready.
Speedbird 2 Heavy, B199, happen to have the good luck of being here and issuing the first landing class to the Concorde here at JFK back in '77. Just want to say it's been wonderful working with your aircraft, and we're good luck to all the crews, and we're going to miss you. Well, we're very, very grateful indeed for all your help, especially over such a long period. It's been great knowing you, and we're going to miss you a lot. 40 Speedbird 2 Heavy, Canada Tower, wind 310 at 12, maintain 4,000. Clear to take off.
That's the last time Concorde will ever be cleared from JFK for takeoff. she's rocking. She's rolling? Here's the smoke.
It's just unbelievable. And I just heartbroken. I can't believe that that's it. It's over.
Yeah, she's gone.
Now, the sky is quieter, more lonely. A need for speed and luxury has been replaced by the need for volume and economy. But Concorde was about more than luxury. It was about technology, power, and optimism that the world could be brought closer together through speed.
As a kid, I would read science fiction, and so much of science fiction became fact in my lifetime, and I never thought I'd be part of a scene where one could fly supersonic planes as a matter of routine, and I'm very sad to see that part of the future disappear.
Normally, we think of technology as something that you advance upon. You have a great experience and you say, well, in a couple of years, this is going to be even better. Unfortunately, in a couple of years, this will just be a memory.
It's sad that this particular offering is going to be withdrawn. It's poetically sad, because this shows us how far the human being has gone, how far the mind takes us, and what withdrawing it tells us in effect that we are retrogressing, and we should never retrogress. We must go forward.